And it's probably leveled off over the past couple of hours, but if you look closely, the deeper reds here indicate that there may have been an occasional development cycle again starting, or not occasional, but it may be a little bit of a development cycle trying to take place a little bit. When you see the darker reds, that's just suggesting that cloud tops are cooling off again, and that usually coincides with eventually with the heavy rain and maybe some gustier winds. The core circulation with this hurricane here likely to pass over St. Lucia and Martinique as we get toward daybreak tomorrow. And again, we have all the different assorted advisories up, hurricane warnings up in the area as we're looking at Dean making its way through the area over the next several hours. Here are the watches and the warnings and such. Hurricane warnings, first of all, for the islands stretching from Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, as well as St. Lucia right here. At this point, it appears that it will be cutting right across the areas, maybe St. Lucia or up toward Martinique in that vicinity. Lots of tropical storm advisories. We have a watch out for the southern shore of the Dominican Republic. Everything else is a tropical storm warning. What's the difference? The watches mean you may get those type of conditions within 36 hours. The warnings, that's basically telling us we expect that within 24 hours. So you can see Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico under tropical storm warnings. Well, let's look at the track where we think this thing is going to be heading. Here's Dean, again, approaching the islands overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. Beyond that, there's a ridge of high pressure to the loft sort of coinciding with the motion here. So expect generally a west-northwesterly motion. Eventually, by late in the weekend, early next week, up toward the Yucatan, of course, the farther you get out, the more uncertainty.
To the islands of Martinique, Barbados, and St. Lucia, where we're seeing wind gusts now, not hurricane force, but up to tropical storm force. The winds in the center of Hurricane Dean are 100 miles an hour. It's a Category 2 hurricane, and as it continues to press down upon the Antilles, we're seeing those wind gusts up to around 59 miles an hour now. At Martinique, Barbados has reported a 55-mile-an-hour wind gust, and St. Lucia, a 41-mile-an-hour wind gust. Now, the circulation is pretty small here, but as you can see, the center of it just really now moving towards St. Lucia, and Martinique is probably going to feel the effects of it. The central Antilles here, mostly tropical storm force or hurricane force winds. We're going to see waves of 18 to 24 feet. Heavy rain probably lasting 24 hours or less. Now, well-built structures will probably fare fine, but it looks like we're going to find some of those poorly built structures that may suffer structural damage of the severe variety. This pushes off toward the west over the next few days, close to the island of Hispaniola, but very close to Jamaica and the Caymans by the time we get into, say, Saturday overnight and on into Sunday. So the forecast is for it to become a major hurricane, a Category 3 or above in the next 3 to 5 days. And then beyond the weekend, moving back up toward the Gulf, it very well could affect Mexico, including the Yucatan Peninsula. But everybody in the Gulf of Mexico, everybody needs to be prepared for this. The hurricane warnings are up for the islands here of Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, and St. Lucia. Stay with us for more on Dean.
The first NASCAR stock car to reach 200 miles per hour.
To home, Gulf of Mexico looking fine down through the Caribbean Sea. You know the story there. There's Dean. It has moved past the Lesser Antilles, the windwards and the leewards. Last night at this time, it was about 100 miles to the east of St. Lucia and Martinique. Within that period of time, it has really moved a fair distance. So it is moving quickly, although just a little slower than it was last night. Here's our hurricane with wind field placed on it. And keep in mind, islands are still good ways away. So if you're looking at some of these numbers here, 9 miles an hour, 23 miles an hour, not very impressive. There is an extremely strong gradient as you get closer to the hurricane, and especially right around that eye wall. That's where the most powerful winds are situated. Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. If it were to become a Category 5, that means it would have to go above 150 miles, 55 miles per hour. That's possible. Right now, as it continues essentially on a due westerly course, the only thing that would really cause it to strengthen or weaken would be internal hurricane mechanisms opposed to like large area wind shear. Here's a look at the winds aloft with our water vapor imagery. Low pressure center, we've been watching this here. It has been drifting off to the west. So we have a trough to the west. Then over the hurricane, there is a ridge of high pressure. And with that ridge, that is steering it westerly. So the key player that we're going to be watching is this low pressure center moving away ahead of it. It should continue to do that. That will have an influence on eventually where this system is going. We think should be making its way over toward Jamaica, maybe over Jamaica, then back over to around Cancun or Cozumel. Beyond that, the uncertainty increases. You just need to be vigilant over toward portions of the Gulf of Mexico. It may try to stay over toward the Bay of Campeche, but a lot of area still to be vigilant with this hurricane several days down the road especially. Also, here's Aaron. Still potential for some locally heavy rains the next few days with the remnants of the circulation as it heads across.
From the studio here, good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Dow. Yes, we're still tracking a very, very powerful storm here. It has weakened just a little bit from this time yesterday morning. This time yesterday, those winds were at 150. Right now, we've got winds of 145, but pay no attention to that. It's still a very dangerous storm. It's moving toward the west-northwest at 18 miles an hour. It's still a powerful Category 4 storm on the Saffir-Simpson scale, with 5 being the worst, by the way. Pressure, 921 millibars. The lower the pressure, the more intense or the stronger the winds. And we are expecting a lot of wind to increase here in the island of Jamaica. So basically, the effects of Dean will be felt later today here on the island of Jamaica. We do have hurricane warnings up for that island, by the way. The Cayman Islands, we're going to have to watch out here overnight tonight. And throughout the day tomorrow, there could be some serious rain out of this, kind of like what we saw in Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico didn't even get a direct hit from Hurricane Dean. And then here in Cancun and Cozumel, we're going to have to watch out as we head into the day Tuesday. Thereafter, Dean will head into the Gulf of Mexico. Here is our projected path, and keep in mind we have to fine-tune this forecast ever so often as we follow this hurricane, kind of creating an environment of its own, if you will, because it is so powerful here. But right now it's basically heading more toward the west. It will turn a little bit more northerly over the Yucatan and then eventually end up here in Old Mexico, right near the Texas border, however. Back to you, Dow.
Thank you, Kelly.